This material is made available to you by or on behalf of the University of Melbourne under Section 113P of the Copyright Act 1968. It may be subject to copyright. For more information, visit the University Copyright website.
Of supply in Melbourne. Okay, so we know the house price, maybe we can recall together, all right? The elasticity is a change. Is that better? Okay, so the change in price of the proportion, the proportion change in price divided by the proportion change in the supply, okay? And then we can calculate the elasticity in this way. And from this equation, we can induce that the change in house price may equals to, or maybe expressed by this function. And then we can develop our theoretical model that's okay. So the house price change may related to the changes in housing supply, and also its previous price level and its previous supply level. And here another thing I want to demonstrate is that it's not a simple linear relationship. So in order to specify this model, we can transform this model to the linear regression model or linear relationship by doing the logarithm transform, okay? And then we can transform the theoretical model into the log linear regression model in this way. Okay, that's the theory property we will use in the following time of this lecture. And so first of all, that's the agenda of our lecture. So first we are going to brief the time series analysis, which is temporal lag and difference. That's two most important terminology in time series analysis. And also we will go through what is the autocorrelation, and then we will touch on three most popular models that we can use for our time series analysis. So first is what is temporal lag? Okay, so suppose we have so we just plot all the data of RPPI along the timeline, okay, and this data we call this PT, and then we will have a lag 1 or lag 1 of PT, which is its value equals the value in the previous time period. Okay, so that's lag 1 PT equals PT minus 1. And similarly, we can define the lag 2 is the value in the two previous time period, where lag 2 PT equals PT minus 2. Okay? And then we define the first difference of PT equals the value, the difference between the value and its previous, and the value in the previous period, where delta, normally we use delta indicate the difference or indicate the change. So that's delta pt equals pt minus 1. And that's the two terms which we will use a lot in the time series analysis, because basically time series analysis is going to find the relationship of between the variable or the values of a variable and with these and the values in the previous period, or maybe how the variable are correlated with his history. Then how can we generate the lag PT or difference PT in the Excel or in the SPSS? So if we open the Excel, so that's the original data we use, and then we can calculate the difference. Maybe we can give a name called DRPPI. Yes. Sorry? Oh, zoom in. Oh, sorry. And this one equals, we just use the later the value in the later period minus the values in the previous period. Then we got the DRPPI equals 1.2, which is the changes in house price index in December quarter 2003. And then we just copy, then we can copy this and to the whole column. So in this way we can calculate the difference, the first difference in the Excel, and similarly you can calculate the second difference. And then maybe we also need to calculate the lag 1 RPPI, because it equals its previous value. Okay, so that means the lag value of RPPI in December 2003 equals the value in September quarter in 2003. And then we just copy, select all the cells, and then paste. We paste the function for the rest of the cells. Okay, this is one way we can generate the difference and the lags in the Excel. And also we can also generate the difference and the lags in the SPSS. So if first we have to import this data into the SPSS, and then if we go transform, cannot zoom in. So maybe if we go transform, compute variables. So we give a name like a lag RPP1. Then we can use the function equals lag RPPI. So the lag, because in SPSS it has the default function where it recognizes the lag function. So we just lag and then put the variable we want to the variable of target in the bracket, and then click OK. Then we can have the lag RPPI automatically calculated from the SPSS. Similarly, we have the difference, I think, the RPPI. Then we can calculate by using the RPPI minus its lag 1 value. Okay, it gives us the first difference. In the SPSS. Okay, and in the SPSS itself cannot automatically recognize this is time series data unless you tell the SPSS it is time series data. How we can do it is like there were several methods, but one is like we go data, define data and time, then we choose the proper format, which is quarter and year, years and quarters. Then we can input the starting year, which is 2003, and quarter 3. Then we click OK. So in that case, we create we tell the SPSS that those 4 columns of data are time series data, and the starting point is the 3rd quarter in 2003, and and end in the final quarter in 2014. So that's how we generate the time series in the SPSS. Okay? Are we clear? Okay, then. So then in the time series, one of the most important issue we have to pay attention is the autocorrelation, or normally we also call it a series correlation. That means, the correlation, the autocorrelation, that indicates the data correlated with itself, or the present, well, for example, the present value is influenced by the value in the previous time. Okay, and this is quite obvious. It's like how, for example, the price of the house. Whenever we estimate a house price, we will think about how much is the house was sold in the last time, right? Then we can give a rough guess based on the previous sales price, and that is a very important feature of time series data. And the first step, while we do the time series analysis, we have to detect whether there is any autocorrelation among each of the variable or among each of the data series. Okay, so that means we will see whether the house price index is influenced by itself. And there are several formats of process that that can lead to the autocorrelation. One process which is called autoregressive process, or we can call this AR process, and that is assumed that the house price is influenced or is correlated by its historical value or by its historical performance. And in this equation, we assume that the residue or maybe the error term is a white noise process where it has zero mean and a constant variance, or it's independent from the variable or from the house price. So, and here we can see there is a number of likes where is 1 to p. So the number of likes indicated how many period the influence can be persist. So for example, if the p equals 2, that means the influence of its historical value can only last for 2 periods. So that means we will only be, today's or the current house price index can only be influenced by the price index in the last quarter or in the quarter before. Or we can see the influence of the historical value, historical house price on the present value can only last for half a year or maybe 2 quarters. And there is another process which called a moving average process. So in this case, is that the autocorrelation is mainly derived by the error term. So which indicated some unobserved events. Okay, so maybe we know maybe the income may influence the house price, and the income are autocorrelated. However, in this model, in this model has not included income, and the influence were accounted by the error term. In that case, the error term correlated. In that case, the error term correlated to the house price. So in that case, the moving average process can be expressed by this equation. So, but they are similar format. And how can we test the autocorrelation? Normally we use the autocorrelation function. So it's like we calculate the covariance between the present value or the value at period t and the value at period t minus p. So p and divided by the standard variance of the residue. And if the ACF or the autocorrelation function is significantly different from 0, we will see there is an autocorrelation. So if there is no autocorrelation, we will see this error term. They do not correlated with each other. So that's why we have to calculate the ACF for the AR process. And again, we can also calculate in the similar way for the MA process, which is called a partial autocorrelation function. And again, we can do it in the SPSS, where is we go to analyze, then we go to forecasting. So forecasting is kind of a model mainly for the time series analysis. And then under the forecasting category, we can find the autocorrelations. Then we can input the variable we want to test and take the functions we want to calculate it. And in the option button or option box, we can input the number of legs that we want to detect. Okay, normally, 10 is enough, or maybe we just keep it 16. Because then if we click on OK, then the output will present the column graph, which normally we call it a Coriogram, which is generated by this table. Okay, and all these values are the ACF values with the corresponding number of legs. For example, this one 0.994 is the value when we choose the leg down, when we choose the p equals 1. Okay, and also the leg 2 is like when p equals 2. Then they calculate. So it's kind of the estimate 16 models or 16 AFC functions, and then calculate the value of that function. And then they plot all the values in the graph here. And the line, we can see there is 2 lines. These 2 lines are the critical value. So the upper critical value and the lower critical value. So if the AFC function exceeds to either the upper or lower, we see there is an autocorrelation. And from this graph, we can find out what is the maximum likes for the AR process. So this is for the AR process. It's an autoregressive process. So here we can find until the ACF are significant until I think it's at leg 12. So in that case, if we see the house price index is an autoregressive process, then we have to consider all the values in the previous 12 quarters, which is like a 4 years value. So it's like if we are going to analyze, or we are going to explore the relation of current price index, we have to consider what is the price in the past 4 years, what's the performance in the past 4 years. So that's what we can get from the ACF or AR process results. And also in the partial ACF autologram, it indicates what is the MA process looks like. And here we find only the first leg is significant, and then the rest of the legs are insignificant. So that means if we regard the house price index as a moving average process, maybe we will see all the other or all the unobserved factors will only influence the house price index for one quarter or for one time period. Okay, that's what the autocorrelation, the AR and MA process results can tell us. Okay, and I put some pictures on the slides, and for you, maybe you can, to give you an indication, so maybe you can also guide you how to deliver the calculation in the SPSS. Okay, once we know they are, so now from the previous calculation, we know that the house price index is a process has an autocorrelation, and the process is a 12 AR process with one MA process. Then we should think about another thing, which is whether this time series or whether the house price is a stationary process. So how in econometrics we define data or time series data as a stationary process if the data series has a the mean time series data is constant over the time, and the variance is constant over the time. So in that case, that's the ACF function becomes to this one is like a zero mean and a constant variance. So if the data the data series has this feature, then we see it is a stationary process. Apparently, from our previous results, we see the house price index is not a stationary test. And if it's not stationary, then it's probably a unit root process. That means the RPPIT or the house price, if we estimate this with its previous value, we will see maybe the beta or the correlation coefficients equals 1. So that's the assumption or the hypothesis for a unit root process. So in that case, we can see it's like the influence from the previous value will never decay along the time period. So if it is a unit root process, so for example, if we are just want to analyze the current house price, we have also include all the price in the history because of their relationship equals 1 or more over 1. That means the older the value is, the higher influence on the present value. So therefore, if we include some time series data which has a unit root in our model, then we cannot produce the accurate estimation. Therefore, we must test whether the time series data has a unit root before we do any time series analysis. So how can we test or how can we detect whether the time series data has a unit root or whether the time series data follow a unit root process? Once is a simple visualization of ACF correlogram. So that's what we did. We can produce the ACF and see whether the value decay to 0 immediately. So, for example, in this case, we can see the value are not significantly different from 0 until the leg of 12. That means the house price index influenced by its previous value for over 12 quarters or maybe 3 years. So it is hardly be a stationary time series, or we can see it's highly likely has a unit root. So this is one way to test from just it's kind of accurate guess, okay? And then we can also test the unit root by the more accurate statistical test, which is called the Dickey-Fuller test. So how can we do this is like first we estimate the model as this. So it's like the first difference in house price equals a constant and its previous value of price index. So in time series or in time series analysis, we will we normally call the original we normally call this one is a value at levels. So which is indicates the average or the long-term condition of an observation. So for example, the house price index indicates the house price level in Melbourne. However, and the changes or the difference almost indicate the short-term dynamic in the observation. So where this one indicates the long-term condition of performance, and while the difference indicate the short-term behavior. So it's like how it's moved and its changes. The movement is just a short-term indicate the behavior in a short-term period, while the values at levels indicate the condition for a long-term perspective. Okay, and first we estimate this model, and then we we test the hypothesis. Like the null hypothesis is the beta 1 equals 0, and the alternative one is less than 0. So if we can, by using the t statistics, if the each one of the null hypotheses can be rejected, where is that the coefficient of the beta 1 is significantly less than 0 or significantly negative, we will see the series data, the data series or the price index is stationary. Otherwise, it's not stationary and it has a unit root. So what we do in the SPSS, here maybe we can use the linear regression model, where is regression, linear, and then we can put the difference of house price as the dependent variable and the lag as the independent variable. Then maybe what we need is we only need estimate maybe model fit, that's it. We don't need any. Okay, then we click OK. Now from the coefficient, maybe we can show you in the slides. So that's the coefficient estimation of the model, where we can find the coefficient of the lagged house price index is minus 0.004, which is good because it's negative. However, if we check the t statistics, the p-value is much over than 0.05, which indicates the coefficient is not significant from 0. So therefore, we cannot reject the null hypothesis, which means the house price index is not stationary. So what's the results for that? What's the next for that is that we cannot estimate the model based on the levels of the house price index, because it is a unit root process, and if we include the level of price index, the model will be biased and will not produce the accurate estimate. Okay, this is another way we can calculate the Dick-Fuller test by using the SPSS model. Maybe I'm not going to go through this one, but they will produce the same estimation. So what we do for the non-stationary time series, what normally do is that we'll take the first difference. So instead of using or analyzing the RPPI itself, we will analyze the changes in RPPI, and then we can test whether the difference or the changes in RPPI is stationary or not. And similarly, we can run the ACF function, and we can find the changes in RPPI, the ACF value drop to 0 immediately after 2 periods. And also, we estimate the Dickey-Fuller estimation, and then we find the correlation coefficient is less than 1, and they are significant. And therefore, we conclude that the difference of RPP-IT is stationary. Then, if we want to do any analysis of the RPPI itself, we can only analyze it based on the difference rather than it itself. Okay? And then I think maybe we can have a little bit break, and we come back in 10 minutes, 10:55. Then maybe you can have some time to catch up with the schedule. Yeah.
This is the time series analysis. Time series
yeah.
Yeah. So what we get, so what we need to know in the final result is the lag. Is it the lag we need to know?
Yeah. How to create a like and the difference. So it's like.
So just we need to know the lag, so we can know the difference.
It depends on whether you need a difference or likes, or what likes you need in your analysis. So, for example, later we will see we have to choose the optimal likes. So, in that case, if the optimal like is 3, we have to create 3 likes for that.
So this is the one lag.
Yeah, this is one like.
One 3 lag.
This one I'm put on the
So it's
slides.
reverse.
Yeah, that's the one because we have 2 methods to create the difference and the likes. So this one is I create the difference and the likes in the Excel sheet, and then I import them into the SPSS.
Yeah.
So that's why you can see there are 3 variables here. So
it's reverse.
sorry.
So this is.
Oh, this is the reverse one. Yeah. Wow.
So that's fine. We can still recognize that this works, but
Oh, that's very weird. Why it happens? Because this one is normal, right? Yeah, this one is normal, but
sorry. So what we need to know so is that these 4 columns.
no, it's just to show. The reason why I put it here is that I just want to show you what we have imported into the SPSS. It's like we import the RPPI, the residential building numbers, the difference, and all the legs of them. So that's it. I don't want. My main idea is not here, but this. It's just like.
So what 就是用来干什么？这个time series 的这个 analyze， 就是你要得出什么？你为什么要这样子做？这是 time series。
你说什么 time series 是干嘛用的吗？
不是这个，你把它输进去之后，我们要得出最终的这个 result。
对，就最终主要就是我们这个方程了。
要的就是
我们去 estimate 的这个东西啊。
要这个东西。
对啊。
这个东西可以说明。
就是说明这个 house price 和它的 supply 是怎么互相影响的吗 ？OK。
And this 这个以前说
the white noise。
Yeah, you didn't explain it.
对，反正这个不是什么重点嘛，就这个就是说只是就是它有一些数据产生的一些过程，就是
它是平稳的，
这是平稳的，它是平稳的，对吧？不，它就也有波动，但是它的波动是什么？它的mean是0，然后它的那个 variance 是固定的，就是它就是一个 variance。其实它就这个白噪音就有点类似于 normal distribution。normal distribution 就是说它是0，然后 variance 呢是1。这个可能就是说它的 variance 可能就是那个 normal distribution 是这样的。
对。
然后它如果是它的 variance， 就是说如果是2的话呢，它可能就比它陡一些。就是
0的话，
它的mean是0，就是说，好比说这是一条线，然后它就上下是这样它叫什么对称？它是对称的，它是对称的，就是说它实际上这个就叫我们就所谓的叫动态平衡，就它是一个动态平衡的，就是比较好的动态平衡的 process。
所以它这两个就是说一个，它这个是属于移动型，这个是属于固定型的。
没，这个哪一个？
这个 AR 跟 MA。
不，这个是什么？这个是说它的，就是说它的就是所谓的这个 auto correlation 的这个自相关性，它是来自于的。这个呢是说它来自于自身，这个呢是来自于不可测的一些东西，就你不知道它
再去研究。还有一个就是有一个问题就是。我们的假期是30号到4号，然后我们的Assignment Street，然后是在那个
我忘了。
然后我们有的学生是在这个公众假期，这5天的公众假期里面，是每天从早到晚有这个 construction studies， 就比如我就是从早到晚有一个这个课程。对 construction studies， 所以他也在 public holiday， 所以你是在这里的时候，每一天都有，就对于上了这个课的学生。就可能他们会就没有办法，然后还有就是一般 due day 是在 public holiday， 就大家会
往后延就好了，往后延到周一就好了。
对，或者是对啊，在对周一会比较。
周一是几号？
周一是7号。
7号，那就7号。
对，好，这样子可以比较。
可以，
不然
没关系。
在 public holiday
挺好。那我不知道，我一会儿说一下。好了。So are we clear about what I'm talking or? Yes? No? What? Autocorrelation, do you understand autocorrelation? Autocorrelation. 就是基本上没听懂。Autocorrelation 就是说它自身和自身相关，就是 present value is influenced by the previous. 对。我觉得我需要再重复一下。Okay, let's go back to
to the lecture. I think maybe someone is have not quite clear about the autocorrelation. I think maybe I can re-illustrate the autocorrelation a little bit. So the autocorrelation, so what we are talking now is just for one single time series data. For example, just talking about the house price index here. Okay, so the autocorrelation means the house price index is influenced by the historical value of himself. So that's, simply say, that is the autocorrelation. So if a time series, they can be influenced by its historical or by its previous value, then it is, we can simply define it's like autocorrelation. And then under autocorrelation, there are several processes. Okay, one process is autoregressive process, which is AR process. So, and the main, where under this process is like the autocorrelation is mainly because of the data itself, because the feature of the data itself. Okay, so that's the main source. And then we have another process for autocorrelation is the moving average process. So it's like on top of itself, the autocorrelation may caused by some other factors or external factors, which we don't exactly know what is that. And we all put them into the error term. That is the moving average process. Okay, so, and one thing I want to, AR process, MA process, they are all one type or one format or one form of autocorrelation. And similarly, we have the stationary process. Where is it? We have the stationary process and unit root process. So, for example, the AR and MA, it mainly focuses on what is the factor cause the autocorrelation, and the stationary or the unit root process describe more about the extent of the autocorrelation. It's like how big the price of index, the price index are influenced by its previous value. So if it is stationary, that means although it influenced by its previous value, however, the influence will decay immediately after maybe 1 or 2 period. So that's if the price or index follow a stationary process, that means the influence of the previous from the previous period will decay immediately or will not last forever. Okay, and alternatively, unit root process. That means the time series data or the house price index is influenced by its previous value, and the influence will never decay. That means if we want to, in that case, if we want to analyze the house price index, we have to consider all the values in the history, or all the values in the past, which makes the analysis impossible. That's why we have to test whether the time series data is a unit root process or not. So if it is not, then we can put the time series data into the model and analyze. However, if it is a unit root process, that means the data is influenced or is correlated with its previous value forever, that means we cannot analyze this type of data. We have to do some change. We have to do some modification before we put the data into the model. Therefore, what we do is that we do the difference. It's like rather than the data itself, we analyze the changes. Okay, so that's basically what is meant by autocorrelation, and this is the one most important step before we estimate any time series regression model. We must to test whether the data is autocorrelation. There is any autocorrelation of the data, and if there is, what is the type of correlation of the data? Are they AR, are they MA, or are they unit root, or are they stationary? So that's what we do before we use the data for model estimation. So it's like we must make sure what's the feature of the data. Okay, so then once we found that normally 80% or maybe even 90% of the time series data, they are they have the autocorrelation, and they are not stationary. So what we do, one way we do is that we analyze the difference of the data, or we analyze the difference of the price index. Okay, then based on this, we can estimate our first popular model, which is called ARMA, which is ARMA model. Okay, so remember again, this is just a model for one single data series. So what we are talking is only for the house price index. Okay, so the ARMA model can be used to predict the time series data. And there is one big assumption is that we assume all the historical value can fully and effectively reflect the market information. So it's like there is one hypothesis in economics is that how can we know, how can we acknowledge the full information of the market? We assume that if the market is efficient and effective, and all the information is reflected by its price. So that in that way, we will say, okay, the best indicator for price is the price in the previous period. So that's one assumption that we can use the ARMA model to estimate or to explain the house price index. And another assumption is that the house price index is stationary. As we mentioned, okay, if it's not stationary, this model will not be accurate or will not be reliable. Because the house price is not stationary, therefore, we can only estimate the ARMA model based on the changes in house price. So instead of analyze how the previous house price influence the current house price, we can estimate how the changes in previous time periods influence the current changes in house price. So we can only use that use the ARMA model for the short-term analysis. So it's like we can see how we can use this model to predict the short-term behavior or short-term activities in house price index in Melbourne. Okay, so what we do for the ARMA model, the first thing we have to identify is what is the proper number for P and Q. All right, so it's like how many legs we need to include for the changes in previous period, and how many legs for the unobserved factors. So what we do, we have 3 steps. First, we choose an initial P and Q set. So it's like we just preset. Assume maybe we should use ARMA 1 and 0 for the pre-estimation. Okay, so we run the ARMA 1, 0 first, and then we can see whether the residue here is free of autocorrelation based on the AFC and PAFC, partial AFC correlogram. If there is no autocorrelation, then we will say, okay, this is a good, or this is a optimal number for P and Q. If not, then we have to increase the number of P or increase the number of Q, and then re-estimate the model until we get a model which can generate the residue without autocorrelation. So that's what we do. That's what we do for estimating the ARMA model. And again, in the SPSS, it has preset ARMA model for the time series data. If we go for recasting under the analyze, then we go create traditional model. So in the criteria, we select ARIMA, and then we input maybe an initial number for the P and Q. So it's like we first estimate the ARMA 10, and then we see we will use the RPPI, and in the statistics, or maybe in the plots, maybe we don't need we need the parameter estimate. So in the statistics, you can take the box for all the statistics or the results you want. I mean, maybe R square, not stationary, R square, and goodness of fit, and we need the estimate of the parameters, and we, rather than the table of the autocorrelation, we want the SPSS can plot the autocorrelation and test. So under the plots, we take on these two, and then we click on OK. Then it produces the estimate results for the ARMA 10, and which is also showing here. Okay, so that's the estimation. Right. And this is a coefficient for So based on this estimation, this model is that the changes in house price index equals the constant 1.214 plus the 0.604 times the previous value. Okay, and we see the coefficients is significantly different from 0, and this one a little bit over than 0.5%, which is all right. And however, this is the thing we would like to know, is that whether the residue or whether the error term still has an autocorrelation, and we want the ACF and the partial ACF for the sigma or for the error terms, and then we find the autocorrelogams like this, and here we will find most of the ACF and PACF value is within the critical values. And then we can say, okay, this is a good, maybe it is a good model or good value for P and Q. So if you are not sure, maybe you can run another one. Maybe we will see if we do the analyze and forecasting transitional, and then we can change the ARMA value into ARMA 11. That means we have one leg for the AR and one leg for the MA, and then we re-estimate the model. Then we can find out then we can comparing the estimate or the estimation results. Here we can find we can find that the MA, the coefficient of MA is very small and not significant, right? And also we didn't see very obvious improvement in the autocorrelation test. So that means we include one more leg of MA does not improve the estimation of the model. So in that case, probably we will not include the MA in our ARMA model. So maybe we still use the ARMA model for ARMA 1 and 0, like this. Okay? And then what can we do for the ARMA model is that we mainly use this for a quick prediction. So it's like it is very quick. Once we identify the proper P and Q, then we can use the model to predict the future activities. So what we do is that we go for recasting again with the ARMA. So ARMA 10, and then in the save, we want to save the predict value. Probably we also want to save the
the confidence levels, and also here maybe rather than the autocorrelation, we want to see how does the value predict compare with the observed value. Okay, and then we click on OK. Then from these figures, we can see the red one is the real value, and the blue one is the estimated or the predicted value. And we can see, first we can use this to calculate what is the accuracy of the model, and also if we input more time period, then we can predict the future values of changes in house price. Okay, so that's one way we can use the AMA model to predict the value of based on a single time series data. I mean, the advantage of this model is that it's simple, right? And it's quick, and it's efficient, and it does not require any other informations. However, I mean, the disadvantage of this model is that, I mean, the prediction is normally not that accurate because it just based on the behavior of its historical values. And also, because most of the time series data is non-stationary, therefore, we can only apply the AMA model to the differences of the time series data. For example, here, what we predict is not the house price index, is the changes in house price index. So it's like we know, okay, maybe in the next quarter, the house price index, the changes of house price index will go up. That means maybe the house price will growing faster, but we don't know what is the level of the house price index, and I mean that could not give us a very accurate and very concrete results for the variable that we would like to analyze. And of course, we can see there are, this model does not include any other factors. So it has a very strong assumption, is that we assume the market work efficiently and effectively, and all the information is distributed evenly across the market, which is a very very strong assumption against the reality. So therefore, what we do in the time series analysis is that we want the another popular model, which is called ADL model, which is called, I think it's called auto regressive distributed lag model, which unlike the AMA model, which is only unlike the AMA model, which is estimated based on single time series, it can be estimated for 2 and even more time series data. And I mean, of course, the basic principle for this model is all from the linear regression model.
However, in this model, we can find it at some distributed like on the auto-regressive legs. So in our case, so I'm not sure. Have you still remember what we are going to do? No. All right. So what we are going to do is that we are going to see, okay, how the house price is influenced or is correlated with the supply, right? And then in our model, we would like to add another factor, which is the house supply. And before we include that factor, we have to test whether the residential building numbers, which we use to indicate the housing supply, is stationary or not. All right. So then we run the stationary or the unit rule test and say, okay, this one is not stationary either, and therefore we can only estimate the relationship between the changes in house price and the changes in the new residential building numbers. So we cannot, in other words, we can only estimate the short-term relationship between these two variables. Okay, and then we will have this. This is a very basic model. It's like we think the changes in house price index has a linear relationship with the changes in residential building numbers. Okay, this is our or maybe starting point, and then we have to detect whether we should include any more legs in this model. Okay, so shall we add the leg values of the changes in house price, or shall we add any legs for the residential building numbers? So how can we test this? Is that we normally run the Durbin-Wilson test to see whether the residue is autocorrelated. So if the residue is autocorrelated for this basic model or for this model, that means there were some legs we haven't included. So what we do is that we, in the SPSS, we firstly run the linear regression model for the DRPPI, so the difference of house price, and okay, we haven't created yet. Sorry. So first we have to generate the leg values for the residential building. So RB number. In the SPSS. So it's RB building. Then we generate this number. Oops. Wow. That's very weird. Equals like RB number. What?
I think probably I'll just call it a wrong name. Maybe I have to change the name. Okay. So I think that's a good lesson. Do not give very complicated name for the SPSS. Then we use this one minus Okay, now we have the new series for the liked residential building number and the difference for the residential building number. Okay, and then we go analyze regression, linear regression, and then we just estimate the basic model or the starting model. So difference, and then difference in residential building. Where in this point, what we really want to see is the Durbin-Watson. Maybe we don't need the estimation, and yeah, we don't need to. Yeah. Then we can estimate the model by and also calculate the Durbin-Watson test, which is in this case is 0.928, and
basically what we do is that's the function how we calculate the Durbin-Watson value. So that's the estimated error term. So, and this is the number of observation where we have 46 in our case, and the rule for Durbin-Watson is that if this value is around 0, that means it has a positive or zero correlation, and if it is around 4 is a negative zero correlation, while it is around 2, maybe weak zero correlation. So if the Durbin-Watson value is between 2 to maybe 2.5 or 1.5 to 2.5, which we see, okay, there is a low, maybe we should not include any more legs. Okay, that's basically the rule. And however, in our case, which we found that this is quite close to 0 or very far from 2, and then we will see there is a positive zero correlation among the error term, and that would be probably caused by the lagged changes in house price or lagged changes in new residential building numbers. Then the next step is that how many legs we should include, and what are the legs we should include. So this is, I think, the most complicated, or maybe not complicated, but a very time-consuming step where we do the time series analysis. That we have to choose the optimal legs for the ADL model. Again, basically what we do is that we can run the model maybe several times. So maybe we can start from this one. We run the model 1, which is we include the leg of changes in house price only, leg one leg. And then in model 2, we include the legs in residential building and the legs in house price index. And also we run another model like model 3, and we include 2 legs for the residential building for the house price index, and 1 leg for the residential building. And then we run the model, and then we just summarize. And here in the table is just a summarize of the statistics. Okay, so what we should look into is that the R square, which indicate the fate of the model. Okay, and also the normalized that's called buyer information criteria. That's also indicate the fate of the model, and also the high, and for these 2 statistics, the higher value indicates the better fate. So it's like if the value increase, that means we should include more legs. And also we will also reference to the p-values of the coefficients for the included legs. Again, this is maybe in the other way is that the higher value indicate less significant estimate. And here we can find all the coefficient for the residential building numbers are not significant, and the same for its lagged values. And the coefficients for the lagged value of RPPI difference are all significant. However, for the leg 2 is not significant. So based on this, probably we will see definitely model 3 is not good, or is not a proper option. Although we can find, maybe the big value increase a little bit, but the R square stay the same. So in that case, probably we will not choose model 1 or model 3, but model 2 or model 1. And then we can compare these 2 models. We will find even the R square increase, but the extent is very, very slight. And also the value of big, it increased, but very slightly. And the first rule for selecting the optimal model is the less the better. Okay, so it's like we do not include more legs unless we have a very strong evidence to support include this additional leg, because it will once increase the complication of our estimation, and meanwhile it will reduce the reliability of the estimation. So in that case, probably we just say, okay, model 1 is good. Now in that case, we will produce, we will estimate the ADL model based on this. So it's like the house price index changes is influenced by the contemporary changes in residential building, and also influenced by its previous changes. So that's the model maybe we use. And however, still, even we estimate the model in this way, we can find the coefficients of beta 0, or maybe the coefficients of the contemporary changes in building numbers is not significant. So in that case, that means maybe the contemporary changes in house price index will not influenced by the residential building changes. So, or we will see there is no short-term relationship between the changes in house price index and the changes in residential building. So that's what we can find from the current regression results, is that maybe the changes in house price index will only influenced by its previous value, or maybe only influenced by its changes in one quarter before. So that's what we found from the current time series analysis. And however, we do want to find out whether there is a relationship between these two, and there should be some relationship between these two variables based on our theory, right? So then, in that case, probably we should we may use the third, or maybe not the third. This kind of the most popular model in time series analysis, which is called error correction model. So there is also a precondition before we estimate the error correction model, or ERC model, that is ECM model, sorry, which is the time series data should be co-integration, or should be co-integrated with each other. What does that mean? Is that in statistics, the statistical mean is that these two variables, so house price and residential building numbers, they are not stationary by itself. However, they are stationary at the same level of difference, where in this case they are all stationary at the first difference. And then if in this model the error term is stationary, then we can call these two time series data is co-integrated. So that's basically that's the definition from the statistical perspective. And in the practical perspective, that means these two variables, or these two models, they have a long-run relationship. So they have a stable long-run relationship. Is that, for example, the house price will double as maybe will equals to by the whatever the building residential building number. Okay, so that is the long-run relationship, and that relationship is stable forever. So that means, although maybe the single variables they move they fluctuate. However, when we see the fluctuation pattern is stable. So that is like they have a stable dynamic pattern or a long-run equilibrium between these two variables. So then we have to test whether there is any co-integration between variables. First is that we have to generate the error term. Again, we will first estimate the long-run equilibrium model, where here we will estimate based on the level rather than the difference. Okay, so house price index in the dependent variable and building numbers in the independent variable. And now what we want is that we want the estimate. Probably we don't need the Dubin. We want the model fit statistics. And also we want to save the error term, which is unstandardized residues. Okay. So in that way, we can generate. We can not only estimate the model, but also we can generate the error term here. Okay, then maybe we can give it a name. It's called error correction model, ECM. Then we will, probably we will do it. Then we will test the unit root. We will run the unit root test or the stationary test for the estimate error term or the ECM, what we call the ECM here. So it's like we estimate the difference of the ECM, the lagged ECM, and then we run the Dick-Fuller test and see whether this series is stationary. And then from the results, we find the coefficient is significantly negative. Therefore, we see this one, the error term or the error variable is stationary, and therefore we see the house price index is co-integrated with the residential building numbers. So that means, although in the short-term run, in the short-term perspective, the changes of these two variables may not correlated with each other. However, from the longer perspective, the residential building number, new residential building number, has a certain or has a stable relationship with the house price index in Melbourne, and the relationship is expressed by the equilibrium model, which is like here, and now we see the constant is 18, where is alpha, and the beta 0 is 0.006, and this is very significant. Right? So there is a long-run relationship between these two variables. Okay, and then we have a dynamic model which describes the dynamic pattern between these two variables or between these two between house price and new building numbers. So it's like we will estimate the dynamic model in this way. So it's like changes in house price equals the constant in a constant and ECM, which is the what we call the error correction item, and then their previous value in the changes in the two variables. And here the error correction term equals the estimated error from the equilibrium model, which is house price minus, oh sorry, this one should be minus. Okay. Okay. So normally we call this coefficient is the indicate the speed of the error correction. That means the long run how and this indicate the long run dynamic pattern. So it's like how the long run relationship will influence the dynamics in house price. It's like, okay, so there is a long run relationship between these two variables, and while the changes in house price move away from this long run equilibrium, maybe this long run relationship will drag the dynamics or the changes back to the long run relationship, or maybe it will push it further from the long run relationship. And also these two coefficients just indicate the short-term relationship between changes in house price and the changes in new residential building numbers. And then if we run the model in the SPSS, we can find the estimation in this. And we see there is a positive constant, a positive coefficient of the error correction items, which means the long run relationship push away, push the house price changes away from the long run relationship. Okay. And then we find again the short-term relationship between changes in house price and changes in new residential building number is very small and insignificant. And again, this relationship, this long-run dynamic parity is insignificant. Right? So why? Why this estimate? So in that case, we can say this is a very bad estimation, right? Because most of the coefficients are not significant. Even the constant, they are over higher than 0.05. Because we have do all the necessary tests. We test. There is an autocorrelation, and we have already modified the unit rule process into the stationary process. We carefully select the number of legs should be included in the model. However, we cannot estimate the proper or not, maybe cannot produce an estimate as our initial expectation. Right? So why? So I think maybe one thing, if we find this kind of estimation in our own projects, one is we should consider, is that the true? Is that
reflect the real situation. I mean, actually, there is no relationship either from the long run perspective or the short run perspective. And then, and the next step, we should think about, are we estimating the model in the correct way or in the right form? Just to recall from the beginning, what's the relationship between these two variables we induced from the theoretical model? From the beginning, we see there is a log linear regression. Okay, so actually, I mean, I think the thing is that all the process we did is that we assumed that the house price and the new residential building number has a linear relationship. However, from the theory, it is not. Actually, they might have a log linear relationship rather than a linear relationship. So probably we have to transfer all the value into the logarithm value, and then we do what we have done for the time series analysis, and to see what is the proper log linear regression model for the house price index and the new residential building in Melbourne. Okay, I think that's pretty much all about today's lecture. And again, in the tutorial, we will touch on the requirement of assignment 3, and then we will do some practice in regard with all the content we learned in the lecture. And if you have any questions, you can ask me or Niraj. And thank you. And then see you next week. And one thing in regard with the due of assignment 3. Right, so I'm thinking it was 3rd of October, and just one of you good friend, Rocky, right, told us that's during the break, and normally we do not set up the due during the break, so probably we will extend the due to the morning in the next week, which is the 7th. Is that 7th or 6th of October? So in that case, you can. I think the assignment will not disturb your motion in the break. Okay. Thank you very much. Can you just let me clear report? Suppose they have they have a lecture at 12.我们一会儿出去他们12点就有课，别的老师别的课大家有课，我把它收好了，我们出去一会儿，好吧？你不要耽误人家上课。
像那个这样的 model， 就怎么样变化？
对。
然后我把这个model是
对，
就是看看它这个房价的影响，就是房价变化是不是受到了时间的影响。
对，可以，就是实际上我们所有的都是看，我们都是一个看，就是你像我们为什么要对那些 model 在我们 app 里面的 model， 就是我们为什么要做那些 test 呢？就是说我们要看这个 model 到底好不好，它如果不好的话，我们就得改这个模型，对吧？或者说小改，或者说是大改。就是说，因为这个就有点是，
这个讲实话对我来说有点难以理解。
为啥？
我觉得有点难。
哦不，这就是我们可能就是可能我们不是很在乎你们做的几次。
凉了呀。
现在
Yeah, that's the